Hi Retronauts, welcome back, and yes, it is DOScember. Yeah, I'm wearing a hat, as you can see. Yep, it's that time of year when we all like to run across the Arctic tundra enjoying the winter snows, whilst reindeers sit at home snug eating mince pies. Yes, it's that time of year where, well, you know, we all tend to drink too much, fall over, and watch the Queen's speech if you're in the UK, or do other things if you're in other parts of the world. Let me take this off because it's going to be way too hot. There we go, that's much better. And yes, we have an IBM 5150 here, which is about as DOScember-y as you can imagine. Now then, in this video, I am not going to be doing anything particularly practical. So if you're here to see, you know, repairs or upgrades or anything like that, well, it's not really going to happen in this video. But I do have a really interesting story and quite a lot of DOScember hardware to show you. So please stick around because I think this video is going to be pretty interesting. The story is one of those classic kind of retro stories that you get where you want to get a computer, you get the computer, then all of a sudden you realize that you haven't got a certain thing. So you decide to get that thing, and then all of a sudden you find out that you have many more things than you ever bargained for. So where does the story start? Well, it was in January of 2023, and I headed to a part of London called Croydon. Now, Croydon isn't famous in this part of the UK, in London, let's say, for being an amazingly, let's put it, zhoosh area. It's where the main IKEA is, one of the big IKEAs. I do like to pop along there quite often and have the meatballs. And no, that's not a euphemism. And I saw an IBM 5150 come up for sale. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that is. Maybe there's a factory there where it was in use, or I don't know, some kind of business. That's what I had in my mind, a mental image of somebody using, you know, this PC in a factory back in the day, and it's sitting in a cupboard for a very long time. I win the auction. It wasn't particularly in demand. I think I got it for something like £200, not bad actually. And it came with the original keyboard, which is currently over there. I'll show you that shortly. And I headed over to Croydon, and I ended up in actually a really nice area. Very large streets, very big houses, all detached, nice big leafy gardens. So it turns out that there is actually an area of Croydon where the more wealthy live, it turns out. So my mental image kind of instantly changed. I thought, okay, well, it's not going to be a factory or something like that. And I went up to one of the houses and knocked on the door, and a gentleman answered. And he was an older guy. I mean, I'm not young, obviously, but he was a little bit older than me. I think he would have been about 60, something like that. And he invited me into his hallway, and there was the IBM 5150 sitting there with his keyboard in the same condition as I'd seen it in the listing. So I thought, okay, this is looking pretty good. I had a quick chat with him about the provenance of the machine, and he told me that it was his brother's, that his brother had actually gone to live in America many years ago, but he actually did work for a quite posh bank in London. And another interesting thing was their hallway was actually wood panelled. Now, if you know about British culture, wood panelling says, you know, we have money, or we have old money. It's a very traditional kind of decoration that you don't really see in suburban houses. It's more the sort of thing that you would see in a country manor, you know, somewhere that's 500 or 600 years old, with paintings on the wall, you know, stags and things like that. So, you know, we have a house with wood paneling. We have a brother who worked for a posh bank in London, and he now was living in America. I wasn't really sure if he was alive, but anyway, this was his machine back in the day when he worked for that bank over here. So that was really cool. The guy gave me some other things as well. So he gave me this box, and I'll show that to you. I think it's quite interesting. It gives you a kind of interesting insight into the character of these people. By royal appointment, very, very nice. Church's famous English shoes. And 10C, I'm not sure what the C means, but I'm actually a size 10, 10 and a half, 11, depends on the shoes really. And black, I think it says black there, bookbinder. I'm not sure what that is, must be a certain style, and underneath it says Canon. Anyway, we're not here to look at the box. In the box, there are numerous cards. which he said used to be in this PC, but now were not. There's actually two disk drives in there as well. So in this box are 3 cards and 2 5¼ inch disk drive half-life drives. So that made me think that maybe these were used in here in the past, but as you can see, it's actually got the original IBM branded full height 5¼ inch drives. So I'm not really sure what they are. Maybe they came from a later PC that was thrown away and they are remnants from that. But some of these parts definitely look like they came from the 5150. So part of this video is we're going to do a bit of archaeology. We're going to dig around inside this machine and we're going to find out what we have in here. Does that shed any light on what these cards are? Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on, why these cards aren't in there. I'm assuming that there's some kind of upgrade that went on, but who knows, maybe these cards come from another machine. I don't know. Anyway, the story doesn't end there, because I don't know if you've noticed it, but we're missing a keyboard. Let me get you that. So here we go. This is the original IBM 5150, as far as I'm aware, keyboard. It's popped out here. The strain relief seems to have popped out here, so that needs to be fixed. It's an amazing keyboard, I've got to say, and it's also incredibly heavy. It's like a steel case. So if you've ever used one of these, it's got these legs on the bottom which have little swivelly things. There we are, push it in to lock it and unlock it. It actually looks to be in very good condition. I don't know if it works, and the reason for that is I've never actually turned this machine on. One of the things about these machines that you may not be aware of is that it has tantalum capacitors in it. I'm just trying to make sure that this goes on there. Let me push this back a bit. Oh, there we go. That's better. I just don't want that to fall on the floor. Probably might break my toe if it hit it. Yeah, these machines, they tend to have, well, they do. They have tantalum capacitors in them. I think they're 16 volts, 10 microfarads, and they're used in various positions, but there are 1 or 2 of them that have a tendency to explode when you turn the machine on. And the reason for that is that those particular capacitors have an issue where if they're not used for a very long time, they get into a state where they just don't really like having current going through them. If you effectively reform them, I suppose, not quite, it's not really reforming them because they are tantalum. But anyway, if you put power through them relatively frequently, let's say every couple of years, they don't tend to get in that state and they don't tend to explode. They tend to be fine. But once they've not been used for a very long time, there's a very high tendency for them to do that. For that reason, I didn't really want to turn on this machine without being in a situation where, you know, I was ready for an explosion. Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, who's ever ready for an explosion? Now then, I will obviously have to make sure that I have a little bit of water around just to douse anything. The floor in here is actually wood. So there is, I mean, that may sound ridiculous, but there is a tendency for it to shoot sparks out. So what I might actually do is, turn it on outside? Oh, I don't know, that sounds a bit ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, it's not been turned on. In June of 2023, I thought to myself, it's fantastic, I've got the machine, I've got the keyboard, everything's looking great. The only problem is I don't have a monitor. And I was thinking ahead and I thought to myself, well, I don't really want to have this machine with monochrome graphics. I would rather have it with color graphics because, let's face it, black and white isn't particularly interesting, especially for somebody who's a gamer. And, you know, if I wanted to play games on this, it would be great that it at least had CGA graphics. So I thought, okay, if it doesn't have a CGA graphics card, I'm going to have to get one probably, and I'm going to get myself a CGA monitor. So I kept my eyes out for a CGA monitor, and eventually one came up quite local to me in an area called Staines, which may be familiar to you if you've ever watched LEG. So it's on a road that I actually use quite a lot, heading back to Wales when I go to see my family. And I'd driven past this place like 100 times. And on this occasion, I was driving there and I thought, oh, okay, I know this place. I went into a relatively small building, 2 floors, and went up some stairs, down a corridor. And at the end of the corridor, there was a relatively large room, maybe 4 meters wide by, let's say, 9 meters long, something like that. And in there was a lot of equipment, and there was an older gentleman that I'd actually bought the monitor from. And he greeted me and he took me over to where the monitor was sitting, and it was actually sitting on top of a 5160. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I think it was missing a disk drive. It seemed to be, it had one half-height drive on the right-hand bay, but there seemed to be a drive missing. So it was looking a little bit sorry for itself. But I wasn't there for that. I was there for the monitor, the CGA monitor. So let me show you that. So I'm having to be pretty careful with this, and the reason for that is that when I got this, the screws were removed from it, at least from the top. And yeah, that tells a story, doesn't it? But there we go, we're already getting close to having a perfect IBM 5150 setup. Look at that, isn't that fantastic? We've got the CGA monitor. This is a little bit faded. I'm wondering if I can get a new badge, because this looks like it's yellow and it's meant to be red. The green and the blue look okay, but the red has definitely suffered over the years and become a little bit yellowy looking, yeah, which isn't really correct. In terms of condition, it's quite scuffed, unmarked. This machine had a completely different life to the 5150 that it sits on. And when I said to the gentleman, could you turn it on? I'd like to see it working. He said, yeah, okay. So he turned the machine on and the monitor powered up, and it lasted for about 4 seconds, and then it flickered and then the screen went off. So yeah, it was slightly disappointing. He said, well, it was working when I tested it earlier, and I didn't doubt him. It's an old piece of equipment, and it was obviously something that he just wanted to sell, and he was, going to get a decent price out of it, and that's the way it goes. But I said to him, I don't really want to pay the amount of money that I'm paying. I think I was going to pay, don't quite remember how much it was. I think it was, well, I'll put it on screen so you can see how much it was. I said to him, I don't really want to pay that money for a monitor that doesn't work. The price I paid is for a monitor that does work. So I said, can you give me a discount on the price and give me a refund on that money? And he said something which I thought was quite funny, which is, I don't really want to do that. So I thought, well, that's a strange thing to say. I mean, I can just leave. But I didn't want to do that. I thought, well, probably in the future I'll be able to get this monitor repaired. So I said, tell you what, let's turn it off and turn it back on again, see if it works. You never know. We turned it off, we turned it back on again, and yeah, nothing going on. So I thought, okay, that's a bit disappointing, but there you go. So I said to him, I'll tell you what, if you're not willing to reduce the price, would you be willing to sell me the 5160 that's underneath the monitor? And I said, but the only thing is, I would like to have a disk drive. So he said, well, I'm not sure about that. And I said, okay. He said, look, you don't have to pay for it. I will bundle in the 5160 that it's sitting on for free. And then, we'll just leave it at that. And I said, well, yeah, but the problem is I really would like to have the 5160 looking in good condition. I don't really want to, don't forget, I've turned up there to buy this monitor. I did not turn up there to buy a slightly shabby looking 5160 as well. So I said to him, being a bit of a perfectionist, I said, what about if you have another disk drive hanging around somewhere? And he said, well, only in another 5160 over there. So he took me over to the other 5160, and there it was, and it was sitting there with 2 drives in it. And I thought, well, that's a bit weird. Why doesn't he just give me that one? Because then it would be complete. And I said to him, well, don't worry. I said, I can get a screwdriver and I can disassemble that if you want. And, I can get the, I assumed that maybe he wanted to keep that other one for some reason. Maybe he still wanted to use it for something. I don't know. I said to him, I could get a screwdriver or you could do it, whatever. Open it up. Shouldn't take long. Take the disk drive out and I'm good. And he said, you know what? I don't know. He said, I just want to get rid of them. He said, so you can have that one as well. So I went there, hoping to buy a CGA monitor, and I found myself with a broken CGA monitor, but I did now find myself with 2 5160 PCs. So let me show you that. So I was thinking about stacking these all up on here, but I don't think the table would take it. So let's take this monitor off, because these are heavy machines, very heavy. IBM certainly didn't build things very lightly. No, not at all. Okay, so I've got these labeled here. This is the first one. Not that they're in any particular order. Oh, and of course, this machine is remarkable in the fact that it looks exactly pretty much like its brother, the 5150 underneath. It does have some glue on the top, so we'll have an inspection of this in a minute. But what I think is really cool about it is it actually has a hard drive in here. Again, it has a full-out hard drive, this time without the IBM branding, so I'm getting the feeling that this might be a replacement. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if in the 5160s if they actually didn't brand the drives anymore. But it's a little bit of a pity, but it does look like maybe that drive has been replaced. The hard drive does actually have IBM branding on it. So I don't think I can do anything about this fascia, but maybe in the future I could 3D print a replacement for this if it is a bracket. And I could then put that in there and we could get the IBM branding back. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Let me put this out of the way again. Hui! And this is the second IBM 5150. This one, how would I describe it? The top has some black marks on it, maybe where a monitor was pulled off. I'm guessing maybe this was the one that had the CGA monitor on it. And again, if we look at the front, let's see what we can see. Ah, yeah, this is the one. It's odd because it's actually, this disk drive is higher than it should be. I don't quite understand that. And its bracket that should be here, that the blanking plate is missing. So this is definitely the machine that was acting as a pedestal for the CGA monitor. Again, has a hard drive. I have no idea if it's working. It's got the IBM branding. So that's the situation that I find myself in. I had a quick chat with the guy and I tried to get some information about what these machines have been used for. And it turned out that back in the day, he used to do, I think it was embedded systems programming. So he was something of a hardware software engineer. And he had actually used these machines back in the 1980s to do this embedded system programming. So I was expecting that maybe in these machines, there were some specialist cards that he'd used back in the day. And possibly that was the reason why the other 5160 that he offered to me, the second 5160 as it were, possibly that had some cards in it that he was had some kind of emotional attachment to. I don't know. I don't really know. But it was interesting, you know. There we had two machines that came from completely different parts of the spectrum in terms of usage. On the one hand, you had a machine that was used by a banker at a posh bank, no less. So yeah, this was one working in finances, and the other one then had a more practical life working in engineering and creating God knows what. Maybe it was robots or something like that. It's hard to say. The state of the two machines is evidence of their two different lives. This machine is in pretty pristine condition, apart from dirt and scratches. And well, it doesn't really have scratches, but it does have dirt and some small scuffs, but I think it's going to clean up really well. And then the 5160s, they are much dirtier. They have some pretty nasty looking stains on them. And there are some scratches as well. So, and one of them has glue on it. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to get that off. Anyway, what I think we're going to do is we're going to take a look at each one of these machines in turn. I'm going to take the case off and we're going to look at these cards. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of all the equipment that's in each machine, so that then in the future, when I come back to these machines, probably in January, when I have some time, I will then know what's in each machine and the state of play. I'm also going to take one of them apart, which is going to be this one. This is going to be the first machine that I'm going to renovate. And this will be the first machine that I turn on, and then I'll be able to get myself a bill of capacitors and things like that that I think I will need to repair it. And I'm going to get those ordered so that in January, I can then crack on with actually getting this machine working. I'm almost certainly going to order some of those tantalum capacitors because there's almost no chance whatsoever that none of the capacitors will blow when I turn these on. So let's make a start, and we're going to take a look first at the 5150. We're going to open it up and we're going to have a look inside. But before we do that, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay. Ho ho ho, it's that time of year again. PCBWay have their Christmas sale on. Why not pop over to their website right now, where they have purple, matte black and pink solder masks, all as free upgrades. Just scroll down the page because you'll find coupons there First come, first served. Get them now, get those discounts. So if you need 3D printing, CNC machining, or PCBWay manufacture, why not pop over to PCBWay right now, because whether it's PCB prototyping, PCB assembly, 3D printing, or even CNC machining, PCBWay is the way. Starting with an instant quote for your PCB projects, PCBWay will leap into action, building your PCB, assembling it for you if you wish, and once it's passed their quality tests, it'll be winging its way to you in a flash. PCBWay, PCB prototyping the easy way. Okay, let's turn this around so you can see this a bit more clearly. Really is very heavy. Oh yeah, there we go. Right, you come in a bit closer and you can have a better look as I take the back off. One thing that's notable about this machine is you can tell it's pretty old because I brought a Phillips head along on my screwdriver, and it's actually a flat head that you need for this. Quite unusual really for the age, even back when say the 64 came out, that was using Phillips screws, so it's unusual that IBM chose to go for flat heads. But anyway, this is the way I got it when I received it. There's only actually one screw that looks like it's holding on the case. From what I understand, these 4 screws actually hold in the power supply. Again, they are flat heads. They look pretty similar to this, you know, in terms of style. So let's undo this, see if we can get this case off. I've heard these cases are a little bit difficult to get off, so hopefully I won't struggle too much to get this off you. So let's see, let's pull that out. Oh, there we are. That's not too bad. Right then. Okay, let's... Ooh. There we go. Right then, let's put this down over here. And what can we see inside? Well, let me turn this around so you can see this a bit better. You have 2 full height 5¼ inch drives, which would have been a relatively luxurious setup to have back in 1982. Generally, when you're working with floppy drives, you would very often have a primary drive that you would load your main OS off, let's say, for instance, MS-DOS, or in this case, PC-DOS. And then in your other drive, you might then have something like a word processor, spreadsheet, or whatever it is. By having this setup, it meant that you didn't have to keep on swapping your disks as much as you might do with just the one drive. So yeah, we've got 2 5¼ inch drives. I have no idea if they're working. Let's hope that they are. And then we have some cards. So I can see that the drive cable here is going into here. So this must be a drive controller. So let's get that out. Again, flat heads. This is interesting. This is actually quite loose. I wonder if it's actually come off from its backplate. Oh, that's interesting. This is also loose as well because the screw is missing. And this one does actually have a screw. So let's take this out. Actually, tell you what, let's just take out all the flatheads while I'm at it. Now, a bit of a confession here. I am not an IBM PC aficionado. I only started using IBM PCs in the early 90s when I started working at ICL. I'd use them in college a little bit to use Photoshop on them. But really, my main sort of usage of PC started in probably 93, something like that, when I started working with them as a job. So I'm not really familiar with these older IBM PCs. So let's take this out. There we go. And can I pull this off here? Yeah, okay, that's nice. It's keyed here, so putting this back on isn't going to be a problem. We know which way around that's going to go. So let's have a look at this. We know it's a disk controller. Not really sure about the color of it. It's green, and I thought the earlier IBM stuff was more sort of brown. So possibly this is a replacement. Difficult to tell, really. And then on the back of it, it's got a very large connector there. I'm assuming that's what, for parallel or something, or is that some kind of floppy connector? I have to do some research about this. That goes there. This card, I'm assuming by the number of chips on it, might be maybe a memory card or something. Or, oh no, maybe graphics actually. Yeah, because of the connector on the back. We've got, what's this, composite out. And I'm assuming this would be CGA or MDA. Is it MDA? Color graphics. Okay, well, it's kind of relatively, again, anonymous, exactly what this is. I think this machine, as far as I understand it, could come with color graphics. But this is definitely a color graphics board. Yeah, composite there. So let's put that down there. I'm going to do a little bit of research into these off camera. And here we have a back port, which seems to have its metal outer shielding missing, which is interesting. And again, it looks like some kind of serial or something. I'm not sure. We've got a battery there, which is, I guess, for a clock of some kind, or possibly, is there anything else it would be? No, I'm not really sure. I'll have to do some research again. And over here, we have a bunch of RAM. I'm assuming this is expansion RAM, but I may be wrong. So but maybe this is one of those sort of multifunction boards. So let's try and take this out. I am a little bit concerned because the bracket here seems a bit loose. There we go. Yeah. Look at that. The nuts seem to have been stolen or never installed, maybe. Okay, well, I do have a box with some nuts, so I'll put that back on. So we have a connector at the back, male, then we have a female connector. Really not sure what that is, so I'll have to do some research to find out exactly what type of card this is. Actually quite painful to hold. The pins on the back are sticking out quite a bit. AST. Ah, there we are. Okay, so it's made by AST, so that's good. That'll give us a clue. And it has some settings here, and it has a clock. So yeah, some kind of multifunction card by AST. So I'm assuming that would have been added to the machine a little bit further down the line. Let's turn it around again so you can see a better view of this area. Looking inside, it's very dusty, but you know, it's not surprising, is it? This has been basically stuck in a cupboard for maybe 40 years, pretty much. Again, we've got flathead screws here. I'm gonna have to take out, I think, these drives so I can actually take out the logic board. I'm assuming there's possibly, well, there's one screw there, plastic standoffs, which I hate. They're the type that you have to pinch and get them to, yeah, you know, you have to get them to be quite small and then you can slide off the board, which is a bit of a bummer. Not a big fan of those. We've got a speaker connector there. There's the speaker. Okay, well, let's try taking out one of the drives. Let's see how easy that is. They are actually connected together using this cable. It's going to be a bit awkward because the speaker's in the way. Can I take the speaker out? Ah, there we go. I'm going to put that through there. That was useful, taking that speaker out so I could go through its holder. There we go. And a bit of a reminder to myself, the speaker wire, black and yellow, the black is closer to the speaker, okay? So that's a reminder to myself for later. I'll just pop this on here for now. Can we take this out? Yes, we can. Okay, so let's take this cable off. And take off this power here. Can't take that off yet, so let's just get it out first. It probably has to go through the front, so we do have to take this off. This is very, very stuck, this cable. Oh, wow. That was crazy. There we are. Oh, okay. So I'm not going to be able to get to the logic board underneath there. Maybe I don't need to take the drives out. I'll do that anyway. It needs servicing, doesn't it? Okay, round to this side. Let's take this off. There we are. Well, let's take these out. I need to clean this up anyway, so it really does make sense that I completely disassemble it, really. I think I'll even take this out as well, so if there's a problem with it, we can service it. There we are. Okay, is it the same? Oh yeah, same power connector. Let's see how that's connected. The same. Oh, this is going to be hard to get out that back the way it was. Just need to be able to see it a bit better. So I'm only pulling it by the cables because this is very awkward, isn't it? How far will that go? That won't even come out the front, will it? Can I pull it backwards? No. Let me try some pincers. This may help me to get a purchase on it. Wow. Must be oxidization on that. That needs some oxidation remover. There we go. I'm going to take these drives off the bench for now because they're taking up quite a lot of space. Okay, where are we now? Well, we've got out the drives. Power supply is still there. Another note to myself, red on the right. Red on the right, orange on the left. So out comes that. It comes out actually very easily. It's a bit worrying, to be honest. So we've got a screw here. Oh, that was very loose, actually. Looks like most of the screws are pretty much the same size. There we go. Are there any other screws? Not really. So what I need to do is, let me just have a quick look under here. So, that's the screws, but now we have these plastic retaining clips. Oh, hang on. Is it coming out? Wow, there we are. Look at that dust bunny. How long has that been living in there for? Great, let's take off the speaker. And there's the logic board. It's relatively modest, isn't it, really? Ah, there we are. That gives you an idea of the color that it actually should be. And I think this is going to get washed. So let me do that. Actually, before I resort to giving it a wash, it's actually quite light dust. So maybe just, I've got an air duster. Let me give that a go and let's see what it comes out like. So this is the logic board of the 5150. What can we see? We're not really going to be able to tell that much until we actually turn it on. We got the processor over there. These are the expansion slots. As you can see in this earlier version of the IBM machine, there were 5 slots. They very quickly became massively in demand, resulting in things like multi-cards because people just didn't have enough slots to expand the machine as much as they wanted to. If you think about this machine, one of its biggest competitors would have been the Apple II, and the Apple II actually had 7 slots in it. So 5 really wasn't that great. Having said that, you can see by the form factor of the machine that it was already pretty large, so you can see why IBM made that compromise. Over here, you've got the RAM. It's all socketed, which is great, so that's going to make fixing it a little bit easier if we do have problems with the RAM. The RAM does actually fail on these machines. Over here, you can see we've got these capacitors. They're marked down as C7. These, I believe, are all for the RAM, so these can be problematic. Here, we have another one. This is another one marked as C7. I believe that smooths out the power supply to the slots, and I believe this can get a lot of strain. So I think what we'll do is, when we turn this machine on, is we won't plug anything in, and then that will give this some time to kind of get its act together. And because, do you remember I said earlier that these machines, these caps tend to have a bit of an exploding thing when they've not been turned on for a while? Well, my thought is that if we don't load this cap, at least it'll give it a little bit of time to, as it were, sort of reform before we start using it. The board doesn't seem to have any damage. I cleaned it with the air duster. I thought it was better to go for sort of like a gentler touch. Don't think there's any real need to wash this, really. And then a little bit of alcohol just to get the rest of the dust off, because it was kind of stuck to the chips, basically. That was the main thing, and I've cleaned around a little bit. But I've got to say, overall, this board looks fantastic. I'm very happy with it. No damage that I can see, no trauma, nothing like that. So fingers crossed that when we do actually turn on this machine, we're not going to have an explosion, but we shall see. Yeah, good stuff. As we saw earlier, this is the disk controller card. I don't know much about this. I'm assuming that this is the original one, unless there was a fault in the machine and it had to be replaced. For all I know, this is the original one that actually came in this machine. The connector looks a little bit oxidized there, so I'm going to give that a little bit of antioxidant. So let me just do that now. There we are. Let's just do it on the other side. And let's just clean that off. Tiny bit of tarnish, but I can't really see that much. Same thing there, not much really. Let's do the ISO slot as well while we're at it. That's possibly never even come out of the machine in all its history. So let's just give that a tiny bit of a clean up. So yeah, nothing much to say about it. Two tantalum capacitors as well. They're three-legged type, the same as on the main logic board. So I guess this could be a contender if there is a failure with the machine. I am not going to have this plugged in, I think, when I turn the machine on to start off with, because we'll give these caps a little bit of time to reform on the main logic board before we actually start loading it up with extra cards like this. And obviously, this is going to be carrying quite a large voltage, well, relatively large voltage, 12 volts going to the disk drives. So yeah, I think we'll leave this for a little bit later, but I can't see any trauma on the card. It looks like it's in good condition. There's some funny little marks here, actually. Let me see if that cleans off. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. It is actually cleaning off, so that's good. I thought that was rust or something, which would be a funny location for it. Nope, that seems good. So yeah, I think this is fine. This can go back in the machine once we've tested the main board, and fingers crossed this is going to work okay. So I've checked on -0degrees.net, and this is, from what I can see, an original CGA card. Has a composite out on the back, and it also has a CGA connector, I guess, there. This was the card that led to the quest that eventually led to me having the two 5160 machines, which were not really on my radar until I actually saw this card in the 5150. If you're going to have a color graphics card, you may as well have a color graphics monitor, and that would have been obviously the higher end option back in the 1980s. So when you ordered your 5150, you could have two different options of card in the machine. You could have either have the MDA, the monochrome adapter, or you could have the CGA adapter. And as you can see, our banker opted for the higher end solution. We've got color graphics in this machine. That is, of course, if the monitor that we actually did eventually get works. We don't know that. You know, on that day when we tested that machine with a guy in his office, it could be that the actual monitor worked and the 5160 underneath it died. Or it could be that it was the monitor that died. I really don't know. I haven't tested it yet. So part of this video is that we're going to test both the machine and the monitor once we've seen that the machine doesn't explode. So that's the first thing we need to do. But let's assume the machine is okay. Let's assume this card is okay. Then we'll be able to actually test the monitor and see if that works. So on this card, we have, I believe, a few of these tantalum capacitors again. These were obviously used habitually by IBM during this era. I'm assuming they're to smooth out the power supply in certain areas. I'm also assuming that this card has RAM on it. I'm not quite sure where that RAM is. Maybe it's in this area here. But I think this will be a bit of a no-brainer. Hopefully it works and we can get in the machine and get some graphics out of it. But time will tell. Okay, so this is the AST card that we pulled out. It's called a MegaPlus II. You can see the name there. Obviously that made it easier to find the records about this. I actually did find details about it on the RetroWeb. I managed to get the manual for the jumpers, and I also managed to get the full manual. So it was released in 1983. Obviously it was released to expand the original IBM 5150, but it was also compatible with the XT, because the XT is pretty much the same computer. What it actually has is on the left-hand side. It's not really that surprising. I kind of said this as soon as I saw it. It has a RAM expansion. It looks like it's populated with a full amount, and I've checked the settings here, which are on, off, on, and on. Check the manual, and that is 256 kilobytes of RAM. So it looks like this machine isn't kitted out with as much RAM as I was hoping, really. I was hoping for, 640K. So yeah, not really that good. There is a battery backed up clock, and there's the battery there. It's a 2335, so I've taken a photograph of that, so I've got a record of what battery to put in. It does have a parallel port, I believe, and a serial port. So this is the cable that came with it. I've given it a little bit of a clean with alcohol. One thing I would say actually was I did clean the entire board with alcohol, and I don't know if you can see it here. There's a bit of a smudge here. This actually used to have a full label on it. And it turns out that that label is printed in an ink which is completely alcohol solvent. And yeah, when I went to wipe this label, unfortunately the ink started coming off and I left a big smear, so I just had to go ahead and remove the entire label, unfortunately. That was a bit of a bummer. It would have been nice to keep it pristine, but there we are. Yeah, so basically parallel port, serial port, RAM expansion, battery backed up clock, and I believe it also has a game port expansion as well. Now, as we said earlier, this machine was used by a person who worked for a bank. I'm assuming that at home they were doing serious business by the looks of it, and it doesn't look like it ever got a game port expansion. It just has this expansion here, which I don't believe is a game port expansion from what I recall. I find this a bit weird that this has no ground on the outside of it, but maybe that wasn't needed. Kind of more standard a little bit later, maybe. But there we are. I'm assuming this is just going to work. It goes in, I believe, this way around. So let me just put it back. There we go. That's back on. So yeah, one of these multifunction cards. Obviously, these would have been a fantastic boon to anybody with a machine like the 5150 back in the day. There were not that many slots. They were pretty precious. So this is a really cool addition to that machine. Okay, to save a little bit of time off camera, what I've done is I've taken the power supply out, as you can see. I found this old hard drive. I believe this isn't working, but I believe it still spins. And the reason why I've attached this is because I have a feeling that this may not work without some kind of load. I had a look for a diagram to show the pinout of this power supply. It's interesting because this one actually seems to be missing one of the power rails. On the diagram, it showed a red cable here in between the orange and the yellow, but this power supply seems to have that missing. I'm not sure why. Maybe that was added later for the 5160. I'm not sure. Everything else looks the same, so I'm going to trust my diagram. So there we are. I made some notes there of the different voltages that we should be seeing. This is plugged in. As far as I can see, there is power being applied to this plug, so that should be good. This is plugged in. The only thing we can really do is try turning it on. The power switch is over here. It's one of these massively chunky, quite satisfying actually, IBM power supply switches. So we're going to flip it very quickly, see if we get any life, see if this spins up, or if we just get a repeating clicking noise, which will kind of indicate that we've either got a short or maybe that's the noise that it makes when it doesn't power up. Anyway, let's see. So here we go. Okay, well, that's a good sign. Not feeling any sort of sound coming from this hard drive. Mind you, this fan is quite loud, so it's possible it would drown it out anyway. Well, I mean, the power supply is definitely on. The fan is running, but I'm not seeing any kind of response from the hard drive. I'm not sure, actually. Maybe this is spinning. Tell you what, let's just try measuring some voltages. So let's put this into DC mode. And we'll pop the black here into one of the grounds. All of the black wires on here are ground. And orange, it says here, is power good. Not really sure what that means, so let's have a look. And we are seeing nothing. Okay. That's obviously been removed, the second one. So let's go for yellow. It says here yellow is plus 12 volts. And I am saying nothing. Okay. Looks like it's not going to cooperate with us, is it? And then, yeah, I'm seeing nothing on that as well. It could be that without the logic board plugged in, it's not actually going to give any power to anything. So this may be why this doesn't work. So that was inconclusive. I think what we need to do is plug in the logic board and cross our fingers and hope that we don't get any kind of explosion. So let's turn this off. Actually, let's just leave it for a minute, because what I want to do is I just want to give the electrical components in this a little bit of time to have some power going through them without nothing really going on, just to give them a little bit of time to sort of warm up. I'll give it 5 minutes and then we'll have a crack at plugging in the logic board and then turning it back on again with this attached as well to have extra load. And we'll see this time if we get any more life out of it. Okay, I think that's been on for long enough. Let's turn it off. It's been on for about 10 minutes, I think, something like that. There we go. Put the hard drive out of the way because now it's not really the most tricky thing to get plugged in here. Let's try and get this plugged in. So if you remember early in the video, I said it was red on the right and orange on the left. So let's plug these in like that. I've made sure I'm using the same orientation. There we go. Orange on the left, red on the right. Right then, let's put this over here. Let's put this here. Maybe I should move this paper out of the way just in case there is a spark. I don't know. I'm just really nervous about this. Maybe I'm just overdoing it. Maybe it's actually going to be absolutely fine. Well, there's only one way we can find out. So keep an eye on these tantalum capacitors here. Okay, let's go for it. No more procrastination. Turn it on, Chris. Get ready for the chaos. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. No explosion. No whining sound from the hard drive. Bit worried about that. Maybe we have a dead power supply. I mean, the fan is working, but that doesn't necessarily mean everything's working, obviously. Okay, well, let's turn on the DC. And again, we'll go for black in the middle. And now yellow. What do we see? Nothing. No. And on the other side, red. I'm expecting 5 volts and I'm seeing nothing. Yeah. Now, it did say that these should be measured once it's plugged in. I'm not really sure how I could do that. Okay, well, let me have a think about this. But yeah, looks like maybe the power supply doesn't work. Hey, hold the press. I've had an idea. I was watching a YouTube video, funnily enough, about, you can imagine, repairing power supplies. And I saw somebody testing one of these using the original disk drive, the ones that we took out earlier. And it made me think to myself, well, maybe there's something about this hard drive that just doesn't do enough of a sort of power draw. It's not putting enough of a load basically on this power supply to actually get it to supply any power. So I think it's worth giving that a try. Pains me a bit that this is actually still quite dusty. I haven't actually cleaned this yet, but we're not really interested in using it right now. We're just trying to see if it works. So let's plug this in. These are a bit of a pain actually, because once you get it in, you can't get it back out again. Don't know why it's designed like that. So let's just put that down there. Okay, right then. Well, I mean, it's worth a shot, isn't it? You never know. Yeah, let's see how it goes. Okay, so let's turn this on and see what happens. Okay, well, that was different. Don't know if you can hear that. There are some noises coming out of the hard drive. The disk drive is just completely inert. I didn't look at the front of it to see if there was a disk. There is actually a disk light. Maybe that lit up. I don't know. So let's just do that again. And this time, what I want to do is I want to put a microphone there so you can actually hear it. That powered up. No explosion. That's good. Okay, so let's pop this in here. There we are. So hopefully that will pick up the sound of the disk drive, the hard drive, I should say. So hopefully you can hear that. So let's turn it back on again. There you go. So hopefully now you can hear the heads ticking and you can hear the whining from here. Ah, right then. Good. So the power supply is okay. It did trouble me that, the fan was going, because the reason why I thought this was worth a try was because in that video, their power supply had a problem. There seemed to be a short, I think, on their logic board. And when that was the case, the fan spun up and then stopped immediately. And as we saw earlier, the fan is running constantly, which suggests there isn't actually a power supply problem. But obviously there was, because it wasn't giving me any power. So it made me think, well, they're getting that issue with the disk drive plugged in. So maybe the disk drive has something about it. Like I said, it requires more power. So I thought that was why it was worth giving that a go. One thing I've noticed since I started up is that it does smell a bit. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess that's just the electronic components giving off some gases, which is, yeah, really nice, healthy thought, isn't it, really? Okay, so let's put this on direct current. And we'll go over here to ground. And let's see now if we can actually get some voltage. You can't quite see that, can you? Let me pop it up here. There you go. Okay, so I'm not sure, again, like I said earlier, which one of these might be the voltage. So let's try there. No, that's millivolts, isn't it? Okay, here, no. Okay, here. Oh, look at that. That's 5 volts, I think. Yeah, 5 volts. Great. Where else could we check? I suppose we could check on a capacitor down here. Let's have a look again on the capacitor. Nothing. Well, this one. Nothing. Middle leg. Ah, look at that. 5 volts again. Okay, so we are seeing, I think, the 5 volt rail working on the logic board, and we are not seeing an explosion so far. I don't know why I keep on saying that so far. Hopefully we're not going to have one. Like I said, I can definitely smell a bit of an electronic whiff going on here. So yeah, it looks like the electronics have woken up after a really long sleep. Maybe this hasn't been used since the late 80s. That gives you an idea of how long this might have sat dormant for. So I'm going to leave this again run for a few minutes. I'm not going to let you watch that. I just think it's a good idea to let these electronic components soak in a bit. And then I think the next stage is I'm going to try plugging in the graphics card and the monitor. Right, it's all set up. I've got the CGA card plugged into the CGA monitor, the 5153. I've still got the disk drive plugged in just in case it doesn't have enough load for the power supply to come on. So we shall see if it still powers up. I've popped the hard drive back on its display bracket. The monitor, I'm not sure how that's going to go. It may need a bit of adjustment, but let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Oh, would help if I turn the monitor on. There we go. Oh, look at that. Got a cursor. Maybe it's dead. It's just flashing away, isn't it? It's not a good sign. Well, let's wait. I'm not really sure what it's meant to do to be. Oh, look at that. Are they error codes or something? I'm not sure. I was reading somewhere that apparently it has quite cryptic error code. Oh, hey, look at that. IBM Personal Computer Basic version C1, copyright IBM 1981. 62,940 bytes free. Wow. Well, look at that. Okay, and down the bottom then you've got list, run, load, save, etc., etc., etc. Well, I think it's a success. The monitor works, which is fantastic because, as we know from my story, when I went along to pick up the CGA monitor for this machine, I was deeply disappointed when I turned up and it didn't actually work when he demoed it to me. Now it does seem more likely that the 5160 that it was sitting on actually died mid-demo, and that was why the monitor didn't seem to work anymore. I remember it was quite bright. That's what I remember. There was no signal. Let me just try turning off the machine. Yeah, that's it. Exactly like that. That's exactly what happened in the demo. It was working okay. There was a nice picture. It had just turned on and I think everything was fine. Then all of a sudden, boff, you ended up with a picture like that, which looks like the monitor's gone, very strange. I'm not sure I've seen that on other monitors, but anyway, I guess they're all different, right? It looks like on the 5153, when there's no signal, it goes into this sort of gray color. Let's just power that back up again. I'm so chuffed with that. It's actually working. Well, I think, honestly, that's probably all we've got time for today. That's a bit weird, isn't it? The way it rolls up the screen like that. Yeah, that's probably all we've got time for today, really, with this. So I think we should sum up. Well, I've got to say, I am so happy that this machine is working. I bought it, over 2 years ago now. And at the time, I was full of enthusiasm to get the machine and start working on it. But back then, if you're familiar with this channel, I didn't actually have this cabin space that I have now. I was working out of a small room on the side of my house, which was about the size of a sort of medium-sized bedroom. I had enough room to just about fit the camera. But every time I worked on the machine, I had to basically get it out of storage, do something with it, and then really put it away. I had literally nowhere to actually put any machines so I could use them. So for quite a long time, this machine was in storage, and then I started working on the cabin project, and that took quite a while. And then the aftermath of that took a while as well. But I've been recording in here for pretty much a year now, and I'm sort of at a stage now where I'm pretty happy with the way the cabin is working. So I decided it was about time to try and do something for DOScember. And I'm really happy that I actually have the machines to do that. Now, obviously, I do have other machines in my collection. I have the Windows XP machine. I have a compact laptop, which we actually haven't shown on the channel yet. I have another ICL PC. You can see over there, I've got an ICL PC. That's a Pentium 90 from, I think it was 1996, something like that. And that has a close connection to me because I actually worked for ICL for a while, which was kind of the sort of British IBM, if you want to think about it like that. They made mainframes and they made PCs and things like that. And eventually they kind of became irrelevant to a large extent, a bit like IBM is these days, even though it still seems to make money from something. I don't know what it is. Right then, so where are we? The IBM 5150 works, as we can see. Even better than that, well, not even better than that, but as well as that, the CGA monitor that I went out on that day in the summer in 2023 to get does actually work. Right now, we're only seeing monochrome graphics, but I'm pretty sure that if we put it through its paces with something with color in it, we would get color. I must say, I'm really happy with the picture. There's no burn-in or anything like that, and it's reasonably sharp. I'm a little bit unhappy about the badge. It would be nice to get that back to the sort of state that it was in originally. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that. The best way, in a way, to do it would be to screen print it, but I don't have screen print equipment. Another option is to possibly get a replacement badge, but I would imagine they're pretty hard to come by. So if you have any ideas about how I could actually modify it's mainly just the red, really. It's just the red has faded to like a pale amber. It would be good to get that back to being red. I don't think, hand painting it would be good. It would just look a bit janky. Possibly I could use some kind of transparent overlay. That might actually look okay. But I do need to clean this monitor. I need to print some inserts for the top because they're actually missing. That's the way it was when I got it. I need to source the right screws for it as well, because right now the monitor's not actually held together with anything. That's just the way it was when I got it. I think the gentleman had taken it apart at some point in the past and never put it back together properly. So those screws were gone, as were the inserts for the top. The actual IBM 5150 from the banker, it's in pretty good condition. The two drives look good. We'll have to test those in the next video. Make sure those are working. And then once I've got the machine renovated, I have a little bit of a quandary, and I want to ask you about that. I want your opinion on this. Should I aim to keep the 5150 because it is the original IBM PC? So in terms of historical importance, it's right up there, right? Along with the Apple II, the Amiga, things like that. Well, the Amiga 1000, let's put it that way, the original model of the Amiga. But the thing is, it's not going to be that useful a machine. If it has the original disk drives, as far as I understand it, they're only going to be 160K instead of 320K, which would obviously make them much more usable. It doesn't have a hard drive. That's the main thing. It doesn't have a hard drive, whereas both of the 5160s do have an MFM hard drive. I mean, I'm not sure if those work, but they do actually have hard drives, so that would make them more usable. So would it make more sense in the future to try and take the best parts of what I do go on to find in the 5160s, put those into the 5150 and turn that into a more capable machine? I mean, it wouldn't be stock, but it would be more useful as a machine to play games and things like that. Not really that interested in using Excel or the business side of things, but I am more interested in trying out some early DOS games. That would be quite interesting to try out. The processor obviously is slow in it, but I think in the XT it's just as slow, so there's no real difference there. Should I upgrade the logic board to, let's say, a 286? That seems like sacrilege, to be honest. I'm not even sure if that's even possible. So basically what I would like to hear is, what do you think I should do? Do you think I should go for upgrading one of the 5160s and using that? I'm not sure if that's the best idea, but my intuition is keep the 5150, keep one disk drive in it, or potentially upgrade it to half-height disk drives. The only problem is right now I only have one black one, so I'd have to source another one. It might be quite difficult to get a pair, that look nice. But that would give me two disk drives. I would probably put those on the left, and then on the right maybe put the hard drive, the MFM hard drive, and then that would give me that. Right now the machine I think only has, is it 64K maybe, plus 256? So it's maybe a little bit short on RAM. It would be good to get it up to, 640 or whatever it was. So yeah, that's what I have to decide what to do. What am I going to do with this machine? In the next video, it's going to be about renovating it and putting it all back together. The monitor, I think, is obviously going to become part of this machine. The keyboard as well, we have to get that clean. And we also have to fix the strain relief because right now the cable is popping out a bit. I'm hoping the keyboard's still working. I mean, it may have actually yanked out the wires, but that's repairable, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, my big worry of this video was that I would turn on the machine, there would be a pop and a bang, and it would set fire to my floor, and it would be horrible. But as we've seen so far, everything looks good. I've let it run for a while to let it soak in a bit, you know, to get rid of that issue with the capacitors. But right now, we seem to be sweet. The machine does work. It's now a case of renovation and then thinking about the future. What do I want to do in terms of keeping a machine? I can only really keep one. I can't justify having 3 early IBM PCs. It's also hoarding a bit, really. So I think once I've got 2 of the machines spared up, I'm going to sell those on and let somebody else out there in the community have use of those and have some fun with an earlier machine, which obviously is a big part of computing history, because most of us these days use IBM PCs. I also use Macintoshes as well. So those 2 great lineages live on to this day. The only pity is the Amiga doesn't. Wouldn't that be great? But yeah, that didn't happen. Anyway, there we are. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please click on the like button, because that would really help this video to go out to other people. And also make sure you click on subscribe as well and come back for the next videos in this series, which I hope will be fun as well. Oh yeah, by the way, this is probably the last video I'll do this year. So have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate that, or also enjoy the Happy New Year celebration if you celebrate that as well. Whatever, have a good rest of the year, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.